This is the Mississippi Municipal League, and it is a nonprofit association. It's not a government agency, and we represent Mississippi cities and towns, mayors and boards. So we're involved in all kinds of issues that relate to cities and towns, and there are a bunch of issues. Almost everything in the legislature involves issues in cities: streets, infrastructure, recreation, health care, education, you name it. So we've got a big job. It's the first time, I think, ever that the state's had both houses, Senate and House, as Republicans. And so we're just now finding out who the Republican House chairmen are. And we think they've made some excellent choices in both the Senate and the House. So it's new leadership, and we've got some of them that we know really well. Others we'll get to know. We're looking forward to working with them. We know that the best interest of the state and of our cities and towns is paramount to them. We know they've got a big job, so you'll find us eager to work with them and support the state and our cities and towns as well. It's the same constituents for both groups.
I think the number one issue that we will be looking at this time around is the possibility of an inventory tax exemption and how that will affect municipalities. We have some very strong feelings about where a loss of funding will be made up by the citizens of our communities. The Municipal League is looking at anything that might be classified as an unfunded mandate, anything that might be passed down to the people in a municipality to make up the difference in the amounts of money that may be lost through the legislative action.
That phrase was coined, I think, at the federal level when the federal government began to make legislation that states had to do, but they didn't give any funding. And so that same situation occurs when the state passes down mandated programs to put in place, but there's no funding for it. So that means the citizens have to pay for it. So we're looking at all the legislation that's going through to see if it has unfunded mandates, because that's a shift to more taxes for our constituents, citizens in our cities and towns. We're going to watch that closely. And the leadership in the House and the Senate has said they will too. So I think it's going to be a good thing.
I can give you several examples of things that are passed down. Just for example, we are required more and more to step up to the plate on things that in the past government agencies, state agencies like MDOT have been responsible for, and now we find that if it falls within the city limits of the city, we become responsible for it, yet we receive no additional funding to take care of those things.
I think the main thing we always have to keep an eye open for is we don't need any unfunded mandates from the states pushed down on the cities. Most of the cities are operating as frugally as we can. Some of these mayors even mow their own city grass. And so there are no more corners we can cut. So every time an unfunded mandate is pushed down on us, the only thing we can do is cut service or raise taxes on our citizens, and neither one of those are viable options.
One of the major problems we always have is funding. Sales tax obviously has been down for the last few years, and we are always facing economic development problems, and we ask the state to help us, and they've been really responsive in that nature. But we would just ask the legislature for any unfunded mandates not be passed down to the cities. We need all the dollars we can get.
Give us an example of an unfunded mandate that has caused problems for your city.
Well, last year the proposed immigration problem would have caused a major problem. We would have had police training that we would have had to have done, and keeping up with the records and those kind of things, and there was no funding for that. And again, it sounds really good as far as cutting inventory taxes, but those things would cause us a lot of problems.
We've been hearing, and this has come up the past 2 or 3 years, the inventory tax. And inventory tax would greatly affect cities and towns and counties and schools in our state, because we would lose that money that is being paid on inventory taxes to the local governments and local school districts and all. And you're looking at about $170 million. And when you start losing money to run cities and towns and school districts, you've only got two options. You either start cutting services, or either you raise property taxes to try to get that money back. And when you start raising property taxes, you're fixing to start hitting your property owners in town, and you're also going to hit your businesses too that probably in the first place got the inventory tax exemption. So that's what that's what the whole thing is. We're not against helping businesses and all, but we've got to have our revenue, because things are nowadays, expenses are going up and revenues are going down, and it's getting harder and harder to run cities and towns and counties every year.
For people that don't follow it that closely, explain what the inventory tax is and how the exemption works.
Okay, inventory tax is more or less based on the inventory a business has that he keeps on hand. He has to pay a tax on it, and that is what they're trying to. They were wanting to do is exempt that inventory tax, where they won't have to pay that inventory, won't have to pay that tax on that inventory. And what is they're proposing now? Well, I'm just saying, the last couple of years they have had bills out there that would still bring the money to the cities, and they would still bring cities and counties and school districts would still get their money, and they would get the vouchers, and the state would get it back to them. So that is something that has been looked at the past couple of years, and they would base this over a 5-year period. Which the thing about it is, where is the state of Mississippi? And now that's all I hear. I've been hearing the last several months, the Mississippi's going to be working on a tight budget. So even if we do get our money and we're made whole, where's the state of Mississippi going to come up with $170 million 5 years from now to pay this inventory tax? So it's just a tough situation that really needs to be looked at before the decision is made.
Small businesses, all businesses in the state of Mississippi already enjoy a $5,000 tax exemption, and we are hoping that the legislature is not going to step forward and exempt tax on inventory. That is a tremendous amount of money for the people in municipalities, especially for school districts in the state of Mississippi, and it would have an ongoing effect on our funding for municipalities and for school districts.
What does local government use those funds for?
Services to the people, except for that amount that goes to the school district. Now, the schools have their own, agendas that they use their money for, but we use it for things like services, garbage truck, infrastructure, anything. There is no limit as to what we can use that money for.
How does your city use those funds?
Right now we use those in police and fire, garbage pickup, all the services that we render there in the city, roads and streets, and our personnel at City Hall.
The inventory tax is a strange tax. There aren't many states that use it, but having said that, we are one of the most business-friendly tax states in the nation. So if we were to get rid of the inventory tax, we might need to replace it with another type of tax on industry and retail.
Home rule involves everything. It's just a matter of the people at home make the decision rather than the state or the federal government. Whether you have elected or appointed school board members, or whether you decide you want to put a stop sign somewhere in your city, those are local issues. They need to be determined by your city board and mayor and the citizens that live there. They know what's best for them. And so home rule is about people making decisions that impact them, and not some group in Jackson, Mississippi or Washington that think they know better.
I'd like to see the legislature support anything that could be classified as home rule, allow the people in the municipalities to make the decisions about funding and laws that affect the people who live in the municipalities. I'd like for the legislature to better understand what the municipal league means when it talks about a Mississippi optional sales tax for municipalities.
Home rule just makes common sense. What home rule says is that the people who live in cities understand what is best for them. They don't need the state or federal government telling them. They elect us locally to lead them, and if they don't like the way we do it, they throw us out and pick new ones.
One thing that's really paramount as far as my list of things in Oklahoma is our workforce development. And I guess that's going to go along with education or lack thereof. We're doing things to improve our infrastructure, our quality of life, but if we don't have qualified or trained workforce, we still won't attract some of the industry. So that's one thing I'm really concerned about.
What would you like to see happen? What kind of assistance would you like to get from the state to be able to do better in that area?
I realize that public schools are being challenged everywhere. But I do believe that Oklahoma, with roughly 3,000 people, is small enough where the greater community can impact education as far as before school, before preschool, kindergarten, as well as further up. And again, our dropout rate is higher than I would like for it to be. So we have to do something to encourage our young people to remain in school and show them the importance of education.
Oh, I think some of the major issues that's facing us is our tax revenue. You know, because of the economy, everything's kind of slow. So we're going to try to continue to grow our tax base in Yazoo City and helping those businesses expand that are there. We have quite a few that are going to be doing addition where they will be able to sell their products and in return get the taxes off from that will come back to Yazoo City. Another issue that we have is with our local school district. As you know, we're going to have to do something about the millage rates and so forth because the school have to operate. And if we don't have the funds coming in to support the school district, then you got to look at raising taxes. So that's one of the other issues that we're facing right now. But overall, the city of Yazoo City is doing pretty good.
All of you who are members of the Mississippi Municipal League, that I thank you for the opportunity that I have today to introduce, this is a first for me, the 64th governor of the great state of Mississippi, winning by 62% of the vote. Governor, we do intend to rise together with hard work and loyalty to our family, to our state, and to our country. A man of fairness and integrity from Morehead, Mississippi, common run-of-the-mill family, hard-working people in Mississippi. A degree in criminal justice from Southern, a degree in political science from Mississippi College, a long history in law enforcement, and finally state auditor, 12 years, protecting the money of the people of Mississippi. One-term lieutenant governor, fairness, integrity, a public servant. Governor Phil Bryant.
Oh, thank you so much. Please, please. Sit down. Thank you. Y'all begin eating. Thank you, Nancy. Nancy was telling me she was once a school teacher. I recognized that when I came into the room early and she said, sit down right there. Yes, ma'am. I told her I'd been married long enough, I take orders from females. Thank y'all for what you do. Mayor, city council members, aldermen, you have a wide variety of responsibilities. I often joke and say everything from the threat of thermonuclear war to barking dogs. That's kind of your range. And it gets more challenging every year. I remember hearing Trent Lott speak, one of my favorite, and he said he got a call one night from an older lady in Goshen, Mississippi, and she was complaining about garbage pickup, and it had been there for a day or so, and she said, I just wondered if you could do anything. He had called her back because she knew him, his mama, and he said, well, Miss Betty, he said, you know, I'm the United States Senator. She said, Trent, I know that. She said, and your garbage is not getting picked up. That's right, my garbage is not getting picked up, and I'm mad about it. He said, well, have you thought about calling the mayor? And she said, yes, I did, but I didn't want to go that high right now. It's all in perspective, mayors.
I was yesterday at the Greater Jackson Partnership, and I walked in a little bit late. One thing I found out about this job is there are no downtimes, and you never stop being governor. You're always busy, and that's great. We've got a lot of opportunities ahead of us. And I walked into that meeting and shook a few hands, and I sat there and I was looking over some notes, and I heard the speaker saying, "We're awful glad to have the governor with us here today," and I turned around to look for him. Oh yes, that's right. Of course, it's me. I want to tell you that this office is going to be open for you. As state auditor, I enjoyed every opportunity I had to come and talk to you. I felt that my job as state auditor was to serve you. I always said my job was to keep you out of trouble, and a lot of folks said, "Look, well, how dare you? I'm not going to get in trouble." And then we realized how complex these purchasing laws could be and how many things you had to go through as a mayor, as a city alderman, just to get your daily business done. And so I continue to take that servant's heart and mentality into the job as governor. And so Chris Champion, I think Chris is around here somewhere. If you'll see Chris, this bright young man right there is the liaison between the municipal league and the governor's office. And so we got someone appointed. So when a mayor calls, city alderman calls, when anyone calls from the city, Chris is going to get it, and then Chris is going to come into me and say, "We've got something that's going on in Moorhead they want you to know about." Is the mayor here? All right, well, he's probably busy in Moorhead, Mississippi. A lot ain't going on right now. He makes it to a lot of things. And he comes up to me and reminds me of the mayor of Moorhead, Mississippi. Good. Wonderful, wonderful. Now, I will tell you what we're working on today. The reason I have to leave is called the EBR, the Executive Budget Recommendation. A governor puts this out each year. Governor Barber put one out just before he left office, and I'm going to present mine to the legislature on Tuesday. As you will know, times will be challenging. We have struggled over the years to maintain money in our rainy day fund. Of all of the reserves that we have, healthcare trust fund, rainy day fund, some other smaller funds, we've got roughly $281 million in reserves. That sounds like an awful lot of money. My goodness, $281 million, you ought to be able to do anything you want to. That's probably going to be $100 million short of what we need. $100 million short. There's a real potential for Medicaid to grow by huge proportions. The national recession has in fact caught up with Mississippi, or we've caught up with it. We've been doing very well. But now, of course, what we see is the increase in Medicaid. People who are applying because they've lost their jobs. And those are costs that we have to incur. There is no way that I as governor can say we're just going to not fund Medicaid. It is something that has to be done. Now, the game we would play in the past, you see, we would underfund Medicaid as the legislature, and we'd tell you, "Oh, don't worry, we balance the budget." There'd be about a $90 million shortage in Medicaid, and then we'd make the governor cut government to fund that $90 million. And so then agency heads were out there, bless their hearts, and they would think, "I've got this amount of money," and then as I was state auditor, and I see some of the audit staff over there, I'd get a letter from the governor saying you're going to have to make a 10% cut. And I would always fuss and say, "Can't they get this right? Aren't they smart enough to know better than this to where?" Yes, they were. They built that cut in. And it's unfair to agency heads. It would be unfair to you to say, "I believe that this is the amount of money that MDA may have to spend, for example, on small municipality grants," and then come back to you and say, "Oh, we underfunded Medicaid, so we're going to have to cut that." We're going to try to give you a realistic budget. It is not going to be pretty. We will spend a majority of that $281 million. We knew all along that the time would come. We used to say it was going to be 14. It got here a little bit early, but we're probably going to have to spend a good bit of that. Still, there will be cuts in state agencies. State agencies have taken cut after cut after cut. There will be another cut in state agencies. I know this is not the best of news for you, but I wanted you to know exactly where we're at. Now, there are a few choices in that budget, too. I can try to move some money around. There's some areas that I think we ought to have priority for. But the important part that you need to remember is we are now at the point of the last reserves. For 4 years, we fought hard not to spend them. People were saying, "Oh, we got $300 million, let's spend it." And I would say, hold on to it. Hold on to it. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. It's worse. This is going to be it. We will get through it together. Now, how do we get out of it? Well, just some of the things that I talked about the other day. Creating jobs, we've got to put people to work. There's no other way. It is creating an economy where those people who are now applying for Medicaid might be able to go to work. We are going to do all that we can. I'm very, very proud of the fact that a man named Jim Barksdale, one of the nation's premier entrepreneurs and businessmen, is managing the Mississippi Department, now our MDA. Just think that. Our Mississippi Development Authority is being managed by one of the premier businessmen in the world, not just Mississippi. This guy's pretty sharp. He helped start 2 industries, not just companies. Here's a guy that started a little company that ended up turning into the majority of the business on the internet. He actually did help discover the internet. And then he got an idea along with a guy named Fred Smith one time that said, look, why don't we put a lot of packages on trucks and airplanes and we can kind of deliver them, and the post office is not getting all the business and we can do some, and it turned into FedEx. And so that's the type of big ideas that we have for the future. We're going to have to work closely together. Economic development in your communities is center. It is critical. It is the sun in your universe. We are going to do everything we can to look at the regulatory agencies in the state of Mississippi and say if they're hurting job creation, then we need to get rid of it. Now, we're not going to destroy the planet or challenge people's lives, but that's got to be done. We've got to have an educated workforce. Sometimes in our districts, in many of our districts, 30% of the children that start into school drop out between the 9th and 12th grade. Now, what's going to happen to a young man or a young woman just now that's dropping out of school in the 9th grade? You and I are probably going to take care of them for the rest of their lives. I'm just sorry. They're going to try it. Hopefully some of them will fight through it. A lot of them will get GEDs. They'll learn a skill. We've got to do something about that. The best thing I think we can do right now is teach them a skill, a trade. If you know how to weld, you can get a job. You don't believe me? Paint welding on the side of a pickup truck and just drive through neighborhoods. People will come out and stop you. Ho, I got something need welding. That's all you got. Got a job right there. Small businessmen, entrepreneur. Have you hired a plumber lately? They do pretty good, don't they? Yeah, go hire one. Air conditioner broke down. When that air conditioner goes out in August, you will pay whatever it takes. Happened to me. I knew what was coming. 15 minutes, $282. I thanked him. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. I know you gave me a 10% reduction. Yeah. We've got to teach these young men and women that they can go to work with a skill. Not everyone is going to be a college graduate. And we talked about teen pregnancy. Epidemic in Mississippi. That 15 and 16-year-old girl, and I'm going to say something you don't want to hear, does not need to have a baby. Just doesn't need to do it. Premature births, underweight babies. This Medicaid bill that you'll see, the cost of Medicaid that you'll hear about in just a few days, is skyrocketing. So much of it, those poor children that are born to those teen mothers that are underweight. So you take a $1,200 birth and turn it into a $250,000 birth. Now, we should in our hearts know better than that. We're going to work hard to try to cure some of those things. It's not going to all happen in the first year. It's been hard work all along the way. But we believe in Mississippi. We believe that we've got the best product in the world. As I go about talking this morning, talking about tourism and the opportunities that we see in your cities to bring people here. We're going to bring the USS Mississippi to Gulfport and christen it on Memorial Day weekend. The congressman's going to make sure we get the dredging done. That's a joke. USS Mississippi's got about a 35-foot drag. There's the 36-foot depth down there, so that's going to be a little bit close. But hopefully so many people in Mississippi will say, I want to be in Gulfport and the Mississippi Gulf Coast on Memorial Day weekend to see the USS Mississippi being christened. Those are the opportunities we've got to take advantage of. Building blocks, our early childhood development programs such as that, Excel by 5, we're going to try to bring those together and see if we can't get some early learning without spending another $100 million. These types of things can be done. But I will tell you now, it doesn't give us any joy or satisfaction to have to say cuts are going to be made. Reductions will take place. but it is the reality that we're going to have to face. We've been there before. We're a lot better off than some states are. We're going to get through this together. We will be there for you. Thank you for the work that you've done. I will be here any time I can. You are the backbone of the small government that is closest to the people, and I thank you for that. Thanking them, the hard work that they put in. This is the government that's closest to the people. Asking them also to help us with economic development. Oftentimes local governments struggle with tax incentives, for example, and they need to understand, as I do, that job creation is the engine that's going to move this state forward. And so asking them to be a part of that, letting them know the budget's going to be tough this year. They recognize that, and asking them for their cooperation so that we can get the best done for the people of this state.
Are you encouraged by what you've seen from local government so far?
You know, I absolutely am. These are dedicated. These mayors, city council members, aldermen, they work so very hard. And they're there day and night. If there's a fire run, a lot of them are on the truck. If the ditch stops up, you'll see them out there with equipment leading that effort. They cover everything from national security to barking dogs. That's the array of responsibilities of a local mayor.
The local government is where the rubber meets the road. We provide the majority of the services in Mississippi, or any state that has small towns. That's where the real services to the citizens come from.
We do have a new governor, and we look forward to working with him in the future. We think it's important that if there's any legislation that's coming through his office that might affect cities, that he confer with us so we can work on it together and find something that suits all of us so we can march forward in lockstep to get it passed.
It's all about local government. It's all about home rule. That's where it starts. That's where it ends for our people. We're the people that are responsible, from the garbage truck to the dog situation. Everything that takes place that for service to our people starts with local government, and we need to do all that we can to protect it and to see that the services are provided.
Local government is working for them, that we listen to the people. We're there to do the things that will make their life better, to build the roads, to provide the education, to provide recreation, to bring economic development and commerce to the city. So we're there supporting our people, and that's what we need to let them know. We're working on their behalf. A happy mayor is a mayor that has high employment, good streets, great education, wonderful recreation. That's what they all want to be, and that's what we want them to be.
We have a website, Mississippi Municipal League. We have an office in Jackson, Mississippi Municipal League. Our associate executive director is Mr. George Lewis, who would entertain any questions about the Municipal League and be glad to share any information.